the inner world, healing from child to adult via the chakra system. And that is what we're talking about tonight in our deep dive discussions. And the deep dive discussions page is going to be joining here in the live tonight for the first time. And our guest is Loreal. So just to put you in the loop, Loreal provided a link today, which I think breaks up the topic tonight.
Just to prepare for tonight, because we're going to do a meditation. I'm going to walk you through a meditation. Make sure you have water with you, that you're in a comfortable space. It doesn't necessarily have to be quiet, but it does have to be just where you're not going to be too distracted or too loud for you to be walked through the meditation. It is quite chilly tonight in some areas, so if you're going to go into meditative states, it's nice to have maybe a shawl or a blanket or a poncho with you, just because your body goes into a subtle state. So just water, pen and paper if you guys are wanting to take out notes. Anything that resonates with you, write it down. This could be a starting point for you to know where there are areas that could be touched in your life. Yeah, the meditation is just, we're going to be doing a walkthrough of just our inner child and re-meeting with them. And then anything that comes up for you, you might want to write down, or just, yeah, maybe just prepare yourself.
So let's give everybody 5 minutes to get comfortable. And also, if you feel there's somebody that could benefit from this live this evening, please share it to them. Get comfortable, get cozy, get warm, have some water, and then we can start.
So just if we talk about the meditation side of things, would you also do like background music? Is that something that you would encourage as well? Or
For
quiet?
some people, depends. It like to their own. You can have like something that's subtle, which makes it kind of break down the background noise. Let me just turn my camera around. Hi everyone. Okay. So the music just helps to break down that outside noise from your space, but it also shouldn't be like you get a lot of meditation music out there, just something that's very subtle and soothing. You might like birds, you might like rainfall, whatever sets a calm tone for you to kind of get into that space. Meditation's really not that difficult. It's not necessarily about keeping the mind quiet, but more of coming back to breath, because that's how we cancel out those negative thoughts. Meditation can be easy if we're just more in that less resistant state and more of a like surrender state, because you're feeling like you're needing to control your thoughts and able to stop them from flowing. Your thoughts are always flowing. It's just about quieting those moments, and that's by breathing. So you get, every time you're sitting there and you're breathing, and then a thought starts to come through, and then what we do is we cancel that thought with breath. So that's just the basic of it, just coming back to breath. You cancel a thought by coming back to breath. Coming back to breath is centering yourself. So that's why I say always come back to center. So whenever you're doing a meditation, depending on the breathing, you can also do different types of breathing meditations. So ultimately, it's just coming back to breath. And that's where you need to start finding that simple control of coming back to breath. The thoughts will always flow, but it's just reminding yourself to come back to breath. Simplicity.
So if you do put on music, it must not be distracting, so preferably like instrumental, nothing with words that you want to kind of sing along, it must just be like instrumental, or as you say, like bird life, or maybe running water, something of that nature.
Anything that makes you feel, because some people will take water as like, oh, I need to go and pee now. So
Yeah.
this is where you become self-aware of the things that are either complementing what you do, or are they distracting from what you're doing? So the biggest thing for people is coming back to that breath, canceling the thoughts. I have got too many thoughts. My mind is just so busy. I can't concentrate on quieting the mind. But it's the only way to quieten the mind is through breath. So because you're coming back and recognizing that you have to breathe in, that's being conscious of your breathing.
100%. Okay. So when it comes to the breathing, is there specific techniques? Is it in through the nose, out by the mouth?
There's so many. The basics is like I like to do the 4 second in, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold, inhale. I find for me that works because I get a lot of emotional release from that. You get breath of fire, which is really great for winter because it increases the blood supply. I mean, the blood circulation, because you're also heating up the body. So you would be going, and then you'll eventually go faster to a speed where you're just increasing. And that's like a quick cup of coffee for you in the morning. Instead of having coffee, you could do breath of fire. So there's different techniques. One person could resonate with this, and then someone else could resonate with what their body needs, because maybe your body is already in that overstimulated mode where you can then just quieten the body.
So what it comes down to is experiment and find something that works with you. Is that ultimately
that's
trial and error?
That's it. I had a really good teacher. I went to yoga class. My yoga teacher was amazing. She was very good at guidance. She taught us how to meditate. And it's for you to carry on with those lessons at home. Like what you're being taught, you need to continue with you because it's learning. I learned how to control my breath, that when I had a panic attack, I would be able to pull myself out of it. Because when you go into panic attacks, you can go into hyperventilation.
Yeah.
So you got to control your breathing to be able to catch. So I was doing all this breath work and thinking like, when do I really use this breath work? Until the one day I had a panic attack when something happened. And I went into, I hadn't had one for years. But because I had learned how to control my breathing, I was then able to pull myself out of it and out of that fight-flight response. And back into the state of, okay, now I can think straight. I'm not breathing. I'm not in a state of panic. I've calmed myself down. Now I know what my next step is. But if I didn't have those years of lessons, if I didn't have that consistency throughout the years, I would have never been able to know that I had to use it at that moment. And I would have been stuck in that hyperventilative state.
Yeah.
Right.
And then everyone wants to bring asthma pumps and stuff like that, and it's got nothing to do with an asthma pump, actually. It's got to do with just your nervous system, exactly. But how to pull yourself out of those moments, that's where the control part comes in, because you can be out of state, like having an out-of-body experience, but you use breath to bring you back.
So, Loreal, do you want to, I don't know if you guys already covered this when I was gone, but do you want to just say what you do? What is your specialty?
Okay, so I'm a life health and wellness coach. I'm currently specializing in complementary and alternative medicine and specialized therapist. And I'm about to write my exams, which is very thrilling and exciting. I have currently 4 programs that I do. The Inner World Healing is one of them, and I've been doing this for about 6 to 7 years now. And we've done retreats on it. It's just the inner world healing was how I got myself back into where I'm supposed, like where I am right now. It took a lot of work to get there. I had to go through my childhood issues. I had to go through a lot of abandonment wounds, trust wounds, and then rebuild my foundation from there up. So throughout the traumas and things that and working with other people, we've molded this beautiful program that allows you to have this space. That's why it's an 8-week program, because you're given the time in a week space to, and then like we give you work to do. Like you got to go and do some reflections, ask some questions. There are simple tasks that you need to do. Not, well, you could say simple, but for some people it's really not. Like as people who have OCD and have childhood issues about being in the rain and playing out and water spilling, they will never jump into a puddle of water. Simple things like that can be so much for a person to relive as their adult life, but also trying to engage with their inner child. So there's steps to it in life. You've got the inner world here with inner child, inner toddler, inner child, inner teenager, inner young adult. So that's when you just came into your adulthood. You know, you might have never had the parents who taught you how to live as an adult, prepare you for those life things. So between your young adult and your teenager, there's a lot of reparenting that needs to be done. And sometimes we need to do that for ourselves. So we go back and we reparent the inner child, the inner teenager, because we have to show up, because no one showed up for us. We had to show up for ourselves, and we had to show up for that little girl and the teenager, the rebel, the one that wanted to break all the rules. You know, there were so many things that happened to us as in our teenagers that no one has spoken about, or people have held it and they haven't released that. So what this program does, it helps you to rewrite your story in a way that only you can do it. Only you have to literally put it down into pen and paper to realize, like, wow, what have I done for myself now? You know, I spent 8 weeks, and it sounds like it's a lot, but you like go through each level of yourself and get to know yourself even better and start reconstructing. Actually, I don't like this. I don't like the way I do things. So I'm now able to change the way, because that's from a programming that was set in me. Now I need to unlearn this and start to figure out what it is that I want for myself.
Right. Hi, Savage. So, when you work through the program, just for clarity, you start from your younger self, and then you work through the different phases from toddler to teenager to adult. So you work through all those phases. Okay. So, yeah, do you want to tell us a bit more, like about the program, the different?
Yes. Let me turn
phase, 8
around.
weeks.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna walk through this. So this is the inner child, and let me see if I can go closer. Okay, so the inner world healing program is the inner child, and we work by the chakra system. So now I don't know if there's a few people who know about the chakra system, which is our energy centers within our body. So not a lot of people, yes.
Can I ask you, can you spend like a quick few minutes just to go through the chakras?
Yeah, I was
That's
going to
Yes,
ask
I'll
you.
go through it. I'll go through it now with you all, because the inner child healing, I put it together. The program can be separated from the chakra system. It's just for those who want that more deep experience with the spiritual side of it. If I can put it like that. Okay, so that we go through each. Can you see, Ellie? Can you actually like make my
Yeah,
box?
sorry, I'm going to put it in the big box. There you go.
I'm just trying to put it in a way that you guys can see it. Okay. So when we start the program, now I also work, because I work with remedies and stuff. We work with flower remedies, we work with herbalism. So that way we're able to supplement the chakras at the same time, as well as, so you can't just do one without the other. It's body, mind, and spirit. So you're working on the three together. We have to nourish the body. So we teach you how to make teas for yourself and how to nourish your body while you're going through this. So the root chakras, your inner toddler, the sacral chakras, your inner child, that's week 2. Week 3 would be your solar plexus, which is the teenager. That's, when our sarcasm really started developing and being used, but that's also, sarcasm is a defensive mechanism, you know? So heart chakra is your young adult, third chakra is your adult where you now become very expressive. Your crown chakra, your third eye is your wisdom, your adult, your senior self. You might not be there. Even if you're a senior, you still have to meet your senior self. And then we've got the crown chakra, and that's when you now enlighten to your own wisdom that you've accumulated throughout this lifetime. And then week 8 is stepping into your power. So the benefits about doing the inner child healing, even though you go through growing pains, right? But you still have the chance to gain control of your life and experience life differently. It involves reconnecting with your inner child, nurturing your emotions and even your memories, because sometimes the things that you remember also come. But when you go through the program, you start realizing why, because there was such a pattern in our lives that we had to break from. And then alignment, this is a process when you align your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies together. The technique will help you to find a balance between all aspects of yourself. And you'll release anything that is negative or programmed into you that prevents you from achieving the goals in your life. The ascension process is where you release all negative emotions or all negative patterns that have been holding you back in life, that will allow this new energy to enter your body and the old will leave. This is actually, it's not a new age technique. It's a very old way. It's just that mainstream psychology doesn't use these. This is why you would always find it in things like even neurolinguistic programming, like what Teaspoon does, and with other practitioners, is that they've taken these old techniques that the pharmaceutical company, the medical industry has taken away from, is that connection that we would have. So now, when it comes to our emotions, our emotional guidance system, I really love this. You can actually find this on Google, but if you go to the link in my bio, you can go and get this exact book so that you could also see. Now at the top, we've got joy, empowerment, freedom, love, appreciation, passion, enthusiasm, and then all the way down here, because this is on an upward spiral and this is a downward spiral: fear, grief, insecurities, jealousy, hatred, rage, anger, discouragement, blame. And then you see here's contentment and here's boredom. There's a very thin line between the two. One can lead you to exploration. You can be content with where you are right now without being bored. Boredom is a lack of imagination. It keeps you on that almost downward spiral, because from boredom you could be jealous that you're not doing what other people are doing. You could have anger because you might be isolated, have doubt in yourself and your circumstances. You might be feeling overwhelmed. But let's say you're feeling jealous because you're bored. Now you have to work through all of these emotions, all of contentment, hopeful, optimism, to be able to get to joy. You can't just decide your anger and then you want to get to joy from there to there. You have to go through each of those things between discouragement, blame, worry, doubt, disappointment, pessimism, frustration, irritation, boredom, and go on that upward spiral to be able to get to joy. There's work that is involved. We go blame. Why do we blame? Because we worry. Why? Because we worry about our circumstances, and then we blame people for those circumstances. And this is how we take back, is by working through each one to get back up.
Right. So it's like a process.
You good?
So, I'm sorry, carry on.
No, carry on.
No, I was just saying, so it's like a process, working through your emotions and being in touch with your emotions, because so many times people might be in emotion, like let's say anger, and then disregard that anger, maybe ignore it or not deal with it, and then go into, like, let's say a happy state. Let's say they find distractions or whatever and find things that make them happy without that dealt anger. That becomes like pent up emotions that's not dealt with. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes. Yeah. So those, exactly, but those are the pent up emotions.
Okay. All right.
Because
I'm
in
with you.
order for you to get there, you'd have to, because there's a lot of things that come in between. So you got to look, and that's why people are only know, like, I'm like, if they don't say I'm sad or I'm frustrated or I've got this deep anger, they'll go to straight, I'm depressed. So therefore, one, they're owning something that isn't really their situation. Because right now I'm feeling all of these emotions, but because I cannot fully describe my emotions, because yet I don't know exactly what I'm feeling depressed. Because we're not finding ourselves, okay, what is it? Why am I feeling discouraged? Because if you feel discouraged, you're gonna have this dimmed light upon you. You're gonna have this kind of worry and stress that why am I not getting there? So therefore I'm gonna be feeling like now I'm disappointing. So it's on that downward spiral of emotions until you're ready, because you can pivot with your thoughts. It's just which direction are you gonna go towards, up or
Right.
down.
Right, and there's like a realness to that, right? Because I mean, it's just like what Ray says here, correctly acknowledging current emotions, right? So we sometimes come across people in different emotional states, and we might meet someone in one part of this phase here that you're explaining, and we might pick them as someone that, let's say, they're a very pessimistic person. But in fact, they're just going through that process, right? Would you say, first of all, this is a natural process? Would you say this is a natural process?
It is a natural, but the thing is, something natural is not always known. And look
Yeah.
at herbal teas. Nobody knows the benefits of it, so become wary of it. If you're wary of your own feelings and emotions, you won't get to know it. You won't get to understand it. You'll always dismiss it and then get upset with yourself because you're not communicating well. You're not
Yeah,
responding in the way that you would like to, but also you don't know how to respond. So again, you're using things like this to help navigate you, because
right,
like if your anger, like remember I spoke about it last time, anger sits in the liver. It manifests in the liver. So that can be related to health issues. So you could be iron deficient, and then you're sitting with all of this anger, having to find yourself go through all of the emotions to be able to release that. And your body does the same thing because it dumps energy. It dumps things that it no longer requires from it. But when there's a stagnant, when there's like it's like, say someone's pinching you, you would get eventually irritated and then eventually angry about it.
right. That's
L'Oreal, can I?
interesting. Oh, sorry, Rudolph, carry on.
L'Oreal, okay, so you brought up a very interesting point now, that your anger manifests from the liver. So,
Yes.
is there a correlation between something like acupuncture or I don't know what you call it, where you do the treatment where your pressure points on your feet or even your
Mm-hmm.
hand?
Oh, yeah, acupuncture. So you can work with the meridians, but again, you would want to work internally as well as externally, as well as you working mentally and emotionally. You see, that would complement what you're doing. So if you can
Ah,
go for lymph drainage, or you could go for, I'm not qualified in acupuncture. I don't like needles. But I will have it definitely done to me for sure. But if that's something that complements you, then yes. If you're doing like a detox at the same time, it would be because you're overall working on the body and not just one part of the body. So we don't
okay.
work with the body separately like
Yes. Yeah,
like departments.
it's
So
a
we
bit
bring the
of,
body together and then work with it.
yeah. So I see D has made the comment reflexology, and I think that was the word I was trying.
Reflexology.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really amazing. You can tell a lot by your feet and you can do a lot. But the thing is, nobody's doing that for themselves. We could be doing that for ourselves,
The lack
but
of knowledge.
Yeah, but it's just like, and the thing was, we don't do that for ourselves. Even massages, we think massages is a luxury thing. It's actually for a health purpose to go for it. Now, that's why you'll have hot stone. That because if you got a lot of inflammation in the spine, you would go and do like a stone massage. You get aromatherapy. That again, if you are having pains within your body, you're needing to penetrate the spinal cord holds a lot of information. That's why you always see it on I'll go through the chakra system as well. There's a lot of information that's held within our spines. So it's one of the easiest ways to get the essential oils into you to be able to get into the nervous system and be able to do what it needs to do.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I'm not gonna, you know, divulge further in this. You were in the process of explaining. That to me was so confusing. I did not understand those four, about the anger and uh, so
These ones.
no, below it. The
These ones.
yes.
Okay, so now this is the inner wounds. This is can tell you kind of like where you are, um, as like where your inner child, because you've also could have been like you're fine as an adult, but you know that your inner child hurts, or you know that there's something that still has a way that you use it as a coping mechanism today. It could be around like friendships and stuff. Okay, for example, I'm going to give you from my own experience as well was an abandonment wound. An abandonment wound can be anything from being left at a hair salon for 8 hours, and back in the day when your parents didn't have cell phones and stuff. So there was these little things that made you feel like quite abandoned, and that it had, like I told you about that panic attack I had, that was from abandonment wound that I still had, that I didn't know that was there and needed to be worked on, because the bus left me, the shuttle left me, and it wasn't even my shuttle, but I had a panic attack. And that's how I used the breathing to get me out of it. So I knew eventually, because of something like that, like a bus missed, I'm like, I could have just bought another ticket, no problem. But I full blown panic. That's abandonment. That's feeling abandoned. Feeling left out. Sometimes you may be feeling left out from um, when you see your friends get together and you were not invited, and you start having those scenarios in your head, maybe they don't want me around and stuff like that. That's where abandonment, fears of being left out, hates being alone. That means someone who becomes codependent in their relationships, in their friendships. Like you always see someone who's either always a third wheel, always, and because they become codependent on being around people who've been stuck in relationships or gone from relationship to relationship, they won't know what it feels like to be alone, because they haven't given them the opportunity to be independent. So they've always been codependent. Abandonment, if you're stuck in a relationship, or maybe when you were a kid, your parents were fighting and there was always threatening to leave. If you don't change, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave, I'm going to pack my bags and go. But they never do. They never end up leaving. So we always stuck with that wound of someone's always threatening to leave my house. Or someone's always threatening to leave me abandoned. You will always then attract emotionally unavailable people, because you already put that out. That's your aura. That's part of your essence. It's part of your aura, that you'll always be attracting that you are feeling. So if you're always feeling that you're going to be alone, you're going to be surrounding yourself with people who always leave you in the dark. Then we've got like the neglect wound. Neglect wound is people who have low self-worth, struggles to let things go, gets angry easily. Those are people who, like if you get really frustrated because you didn't do something, that's because you're neglecting to do the very thing. So you're stuck with like a neglect wound because you repress your own emotions, you neglect your own well-being for the sake of other people, and then you will always attract people who don't appreciate you or feel seen. Because if you're in a very bubbly and a high frequency state, you'll be attracted to that, but of a different energy. When it comes from a low, like from a wound space, it doesn't have to be a childhood wound. Like I said, These are just the inner wounds, basically. It does child because a lot of things do stem from our child, but it could have also been in your teenager. It could have happened in your young adult. It could have happened in your adult life. So, but a lot of the traumas that we deal with are stated from inner child. But like I said, then it goes the inner teenager and inner adult. And then even your inner senior, because you could have gone life and things happened as you get older. The trust wound, you're always afraid to be hurt. That's why you don't put yourself out there. You don't trust yourself. Do you know how many people don't trust themselves?
That's fascinating. The one person that you should trust is yourself, because I mean, hopefully you know better.
But some people don't trust themselves in situations because they're always putting themselves into situations. So therefore they cannot trust themselves or find it hard to because they're not making right decisions. They find ways not to trust people. So that means that they're always looking out for the worst and someone of a reason why not to trust them, because they can't trust themselves. I can only trust you as much as I also trust myself sometimes.
So I suppose this also comes back to your self-confidence. If you've got a lack of self-confidence, you might not trust. I take it, if we say trust yourself, trust to make good decisions, or trust to do certain things that will not be frowned upon, for instance. Okay, so yeah, I can see how that can play a big role.
Feels insecure, needs external validation. Simple things even can be like always asking someone like, do I look okay? Does my outfit look okay? Like simple things like that come from a validation. You sometimes you won't even pick it up in conversation that this person will have that kind of complex because they don't feel secure. They don't even want to. They want to seem perfect, and that's why it affects them. They also don't feel safe. Those are people, and people will tell you, sometimes you just got to hear what they're saying when, like, I don't trust that person, or don't do that. Sometimes it's just they will always stop themselves from doing something because they won't feel safe. So therefore they will live out of fear of trusting a situation or trusting a person. So it takes a really long time to work with people that have the trust wound. They're not easily trusted. Like, you can't trust them, or sometimes they can't trust themselves to make the right decision, especially if it leads to bad habits. And the guilt wound, this was a big one. Everybody, a lot of people do have, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people do have the guilt wound. You always see people saying sorry where there's no sorry needed. Like, sorry, oops, sorry, sorry, I said, oops, sorry. And sometimes people say that so many times that it's actually irritating. They have that guilt wound. They don't like to ask for things. Even if you had to offer to them, they won't accept it because they have a guilt wound. You could say no to them. I've had to teach this a lot to people, that if someone says no, it's not the end of the world. If the answer is no, it's just no. Try again somewhere else. Or, So people are afraid when other people say no. And I'm like, and what happens if they're just going to say no? They're not going to be mad, because I had one of those as well. I would be so upset if someone said no to me. It's like, why would I put you in that position? Like, I had to say no to you. So it was like, it's a real thing because you have this wound, like, especially how your elders treated you when you even asked for that simple treat or asked for that simple thing, can stem quite deep. Afraid to set boundaries. That means I want everybody to love me. I want to love everybody. I want to be open to everybody. But you don't want to set boundaries because you don't want to push people away from you. You want that codependency from people. That's why you're unavailable. I mean, you're afraid to set those boundaries. And then normally you would attract people who make you feel guilty. So when you have conversation, but that also stems from self. Like, I could say something to you, you could take offense to it. I could have practically given you a compliment.
Thank you, Nzing. Okay, so I have some questions here in the comments that I want to read, and then I have a question. So Dee asked, do you think coming out of an emotionally abusive relationship could be a cause?
Would be a yes, most definitely. That is one of them. Depending, like, it be there any wounds that could be there. Could also be trust, because it's hard for you to trust people again. It could be an abandonment wound. It could be a neglect wound as well, especially if it gets messy towards the end. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say you would need to do the inner child healing side of it. It would be more like of a life alignment kind of program, because this is where you got to figure out what it is exactly that you want for yourself. You still work on certain wounds, but you got more of a plan moving forward, rather than where you're coming from now as being stuck in a relationship. You got out of that and you're like, what's next? And instead of putting yourself in a different position, you would want to better your position.
Right. All right, and then Ray, I think Ray is joking, but maybe you can provide some insight. She says, is it possible for your inner child to be dead? Too many wounds.
Do you know how many times people have said to me that their inner child is dead? And I don't believe that, because you've just pushed that child so far away that they are neglected. They've been abandoned. We've left them there. And the problem is that people don't want to open up the wounds. The thing is, people think they're going to open up those wounds instead of just finding already there's that resistance. And when there's resistance, there will be no clarity. But when you go in there with, like, going in there with a connection, I'm gonna do the before we move on to the chakras. I want to do the inner child healing, the child meditation, and then we'll move on to the chakra system. So this way, it kind of gives you an idea. Or do you want to do the chakra system first and then do the meditation?
Actually, I just have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
But with regards to that, L'Oreal, I think whichever is makes sense to you, we can do that first. But so when you talk about the inner child and the related wounds, this is based off of trauma that children have experienced as children, whether it be abandonment or
Yes.
neglect. All right. So then let's say you experience a kind of trauma at different levels. Like, let's say maybe you had a very healthy childhood, but maybe in your teen years you experienced some kind of trauma. So that trauma would then become like your inner teen, right? That you're working
Yes.
on.
Yes. So that would be here. So, okay, before I'll do the chakra, how we do it with the chakra system, and then I'll go to the meditation. That way we can at least go through to the different levels, and then I can show it to you. Okay. So this is how we do it through, what happened now? Okay. Now what happened there? Okay, so we'll start at the bottom, your root chakra. So you gotta balance the three. You gotta align at least the first three to really get going. You got your root chakra, your sacral chakra, and then your solar plexus, and then eventually through your extension, you'll go more through your heart chakra, your throat chakra, your third eye, and then your crown chakra. So where you root everything. This is working from your past self to your future self, unlearning limiting beliefs, releasing trapped emotions, emotional pain, regain confidence in your life goals, abilities, relationships, sexuality, because that's in your root chakra, body awareness, life alignment, self-responsibility, and overall wellness. So your inner child, so we're sitting at the inner toddler, which is where you birth. So you focus on your rooting yourself. This is your energy center for your physical safety, your strength, your vitality, and your survival needs. So we go throughout the program, we'll talk about your grounding state and where you are in your survival needs right now. That will give you work to do. You go and you sit, and we'll obviously do the meditation as well. There's each week you get a book to do. So your root is going back to your basics, going back to what it is that you need right now to survive emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Then you're going to move over to your inner child, which is attraction and emotion. This is your sacral, your energy centers of your emotions. Here it is generated your likes, your dislikes. So up until about like 8 years old, you know that you're moldable. Until then, by 8 years old, you start developing your own mindset, your own your likes, your dislikes, how you want things to start being. That's when the back chatting starts. So that's really getting with your sacral. So that's your womb space. Oopsie, sorry. So here we work a lot with the womb space, because you're working with, whether it's like you had a horrible birthing, you could have had something happen to you in those periods of your years where you need to go back into that womb space. You do meditations, you do self-soothing. There's a lot of soothing and understanding your emotions. So we give you a chart of emotions that you start learning and picking up from. So that's really coming into your main balance, and then coming into your teenager. And this is the field that protects us. Okay, the field that really houses a sense of self and individuality, integrity, willpower, and productivity. So our inner teenager is also the rebel, the one that's like really coming into that young adult, just before that young adult stage, where we start learning like that deep sarcasm, because that's also a protective mechanism against other people attacking our personality, right? Because our personalities really do start to come and show themselves in that teenage form. Could have also things happened in your teenagers where there was abandonment, going from one family member to another kind of thing. Or it could be the rebel, the one that was being naughty. Maybe you were the child that was too quiet and never spoke because you didn't want to be a problem. You didn't want to be a nuisance. You didn't want to be a pain for somebody. So therefore, we have to go and look back at where did we miss out on our teenagers. Because during our inner teenager and our inner child and inner teenager, there's activities that you do that helps you to re-engage with those parts of yourself, your inner child, your inner teenager. What did you miss out on? Maybe you lost your virginity too early. Maybe you didn't lose it until in your late things and you wanted to have those normal experiences. There's a lot or you could have been rejected. There's a lot of things that could have happened in there, but a lot of these things only come out deeply in sessions because people start to think about what they are working with and what happened to these memories. And something might even come up that you're like, wow, I actually wouldn't believe what happened to me when I was a teenager. Something great happened to me, but because it's so deeply buried behind those traumas that you forgot something great actually happened for you. Then the heart chakra, this is our inner adult when we're just coming into that life. So the things that happened, it's not always stuff we can control. Yes, so there's things that happen to us that we can't control, but we go back and reparent, because remember, it's coming back to reparent that child that needed the protection, that needed the love, that needed that soothing, that needed the communication, but wasn't there. So we go back to be able to do that for ourselves through a guided space. So your heart chakras, now when you're opening up through your heart center, this is where we learn about heartbreaks, okay, and relationships and what they really mean when we're young. This is receiving love energy. This connects the lower and upper three chakras, the source of love, the universe, forgiveness. So this is where we work on a lot of forgiveness and compassion. Compassion is towards ourselves, the way we talk about ourselves, the way we carry ourselves, the way we do things for ourselves, not being so hard, being gentle, not being so judgmental of, what we've been through or what we've experienced, and come back with a little bit more compassion. Forgiveness exercises can be quite hard for some people, but if they don't get into that motive of going through the forgiveness, what it actually means to forgive, and then we work through that as well. Then you go through your inner adult, right? That's your 30s, 40s, 50s, you're an adult, but even if you're younger, that's still you're going to meet yourself. That's where you are right now, is your inner adult. So whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, that's where you are right now. This is how you communicate and influence, the source of communication, expression, and a key channel for your heart. So what you're feeling right now is what you express, right? So if you change the way you feel, you start to express yourself differently. So we've rewired the way that we communicate now in the world from the root to, because it's learning new things, it's learning new words, it's learning new ways, and now we get to fully express ourselves in that. And we might even catch ourselves saying things of an old pattern, but yet being able to catch ourselves in the moment and say, actually, oh my gosh, on my 15th birthday, I had a really shitty birthday. But then I catch myself in the moment of being here right now saying, actually, my parents were able to do what they could for me at the time, and I'm very grateful for that. Therefore, I'm changing my attitude to my experience that I once had to now understanding fully that I can express it differently in a more gratitude space. Because we could have also been ungrateful because we've been hurt so many times, but not being able to acknowledge what was actually done for us. So we don't override when actually they did what they could. Now that I'm opened in my mind space and I'm not in that pain and I'm not holding them to blame anymore, I'm now able to forgive them and express myself differently in that forgiveness.
So Ray has a question. She says, I have a question for Sai, but answer at the end. Jewish Kabbalah thought.
Okay. Oh, that's a long, okay, yeah, but we'll get there. Okay, then we go to then the third eye is your inner senior. So this is future self, okay? So inner senior, like even if you're in your 60s, it's you still got to meet your future self because you're not there yet. You're not at your true oldest senior self. So your perceptions have now changed from the way that you experience. You start to perceive and see things differently. This is your source of insight. Psychic information is patterns. What happens is when psychics see patterns very easily. They are able, and you become intuitive and very imaginative. You use a lot of your imagination here, a lot of your brain capacity. Your intuition, your psychic information is also your intuition. Okay, the things that make up your new space, your new reality, your new perception, your new patterns. And therefore you are able to then imagine this new life for you. What do I see myself in 5 years? How many times do people ask you that question, but we don't fully know because we haven't imagined ourselves being there yet because we've held on to so much of this trauma. So therefore, that we've gone through the whole process, I'm able to see things differently. I see patterns differently. I'm able to use this information as an insight into what's next. And I'm able to extend into my wisdom that connects me to the higher dimensions, that connects me to spirit. And therefore, I'm able to connect to God because I am now fully into that frequency where I am elevated. I have nothing holding me back. I am now in that, ready for that divine guidance. And that's when you have your ascension process. Like I said in the beginning, all of this becomes growing pains. When we were a child, our knees got sore, our legs got sore, our elbows got sore. Those were growing pains. These are emotional growing pains.
So, Sai, is that what the chakra system is? Is it just different levels of your life?
So I've curated the chakra system in this manner to be able to provide them a more in-depth experience to be integrating the chakra system with the inner child healing so that we can re-energize our centers. For me, I've got a chakra thing on the back here as well. So we work with different energy centers. And again, emotions, attractions, love, the energy of love, how we perceive love. how we understand what unconditional love is, or are we living around conditioned love? So if you do this for me, I'll do that for you kind of system. Or is it unconditional where we just have it for each other? We are compassionate towards each other. It's unconditional. I have no strings attached to the reason why I love you.
Okay.
L'Oreal, so in terms of the chakras, there's always a thing that they say your chakra is either open or your chakra is closed, or your third eye is open. You know that.
I don't think that it's like, I wouldn't say necessarily say that your third eye is closed. It's just not active. Let me put
Okay.
it that way. You're just not using it. You're just not activating it. You haven't, it is not serving a purpose in your life unless you activate it to serve a purpose in your life.
So
I just want to quickly ask, Rudolph, did you do the test?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So L'Oreal, just for your information, Brian, I don't think she's on the live tonight, but she always got these tests for everything.
The Enneagram. The Enneagram.
Like the
Yeah.
Enneagram. But
Here's the
this one
Enneagram.
was for chakras. You know, it's like was it a 50 or 54 question testing?
Yeah, it's like 54
It's
questions.
long, yeah.
And then you get your results and it will tell you, let's say for instance, your root is open, but your sacral is maybe closed.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
do you like,
So you like, you can get it like either it's understimulated, overstimulated. Like you can also be out of balance because your root chakra is just like so you kind of want to balance there. I believe for myself and for how we do the program, even if your heart chakra is open, you still got to work with your root chakra. You still got to come back because we're starting with the root system. We're starting you from the beginning. And it's nice that you know that this is closed and open. You still got to get the basic understanding. Unless you're like, okay, then once you've known every part of your system, then you go, oh, my sacral chakra is closed. I can now do X, Y, and Z to become balanced. Or if it's out of balance, I can do X, Y, and Z and balance them. So you'll know what to do, but if you don't know how to start with the root chakra, there's no use in just starting with the sacral chakra, because then you're missing the basic point of understanding of elevating that frequency. So when we do things like Kundalini, we lock the Alya bandhas, which is the root chakra. We lock them. So when you do your breathing exercises after you've done a session, then you go pull the energy up through the root chakra, hold Alya bandha, pull in that, lock the Alya bandha, pull up, lock, and then eventually you sort of close it by here so that it comes out your third eye. So that way you breathe, and you can. I'll do one with you guys with the meditation. After the meditation, when we end, I will tell you to pull up, and as you see on each one here, each center, so you will know to pull the energy up, lock, pull the energy up, lock, pull. So all you're doing is you're breathing in, and you feel that energy center, and you pull. So you make your body tense in that area. Pull up, pull. And it's just a slight lock because you're locking that energy so that it can penetrate upwards. But we don't want it to go out, up and out, because we want to keep the energy. Normally you would wear like a hat, or like normally we wear a white hat when it comes to Kundalini, because we don't want the energy just to go out of us. We want it to contain within our vessel. The light must be contained within the vessel. D says, would it be safe to say that the crown strives for self? Not that it strives for self-actualization, but I think that it does give us like a rooting point of just deepening our understanding. It's just we want to know more so that we can optimize ourselves right here in this life with this body, with the space that we have moving forward. So not that we strive for that, we are striving for what we can get out of this. For me, it's like, okay, now that I've leveled up, where can I get with this in life? How far can I go until I've decided, like, I've enjoyed living, like I can write my story, instead of saying, well, I'm stuck here with all these emotions that are preventing me from living. And now that I'm free from all of these emotions holding me back, what can I do with my emotional capacity? Because I no longer live in fear. I'm no longer scared of myself and what I'm capable of doing. Sometimes I am. Sometimes I sit here and I'm like, I know how great I can be. But at the same time, I know the work that is required of me for that greatness. So you have to put in, this is why for me, this was a total investment. I spent months going through each one, and when you work through it, and you, at the end of the day, once you've printed out the entire program, that's your book, that's your story. And you can redefine it, you can change it, you can upgrade it, you can add the information in there, but it becomes, finally, you have told your story. You've finally written the depths of the things that you've been very scared to talk about, touch on, because we don't want to get hurt again. But the what's hurting us is not doing the work.
Okay.
Writing, L'Oreal, writing, would you say that is a very powerful tool to do the work, to, get it out? Sorry, I missed a bit of that now, so I don't know if you covered it. Like,
No, I'm laughing because one of my clients, she's like, in the review, she's like, it was a lot of homework, but it was worth it. But the thing is, we give you options, and the thing is, not a lot of people realize that they have options in life. And I'm all about options because I never thought that I had options, and I can also pick and choose what I feel comfortable with answering. So if you don't feel like answering a couple of those questions, you don't have to. She answered everything, and I didn't expect her to answer everything, but because she was like, can I have next week's work? And I'm like, no, because it takes you a week to do this work. You can't rush it, because I wake up today feeling this, and tomorrow what I wrote about might change. My mind is so beautiful that it changes.
I once read something somewhere, when I was 24, I wrote a memoir about my childhood, and I never published it or anything, but I wrote a memoir, and the thing that I read said, the first draft is therapy. The first draft is not your book that you're going to publish. The first draft is
exactly.
So that's why I asked. So,
Yeah, there is. So you get 8 books with the program. There's 8 books, so each week you're given work to do. So it's 8 weeks, but you do it over 3 months. So in 8 weeks is 2 months where you get to do, but we are adults. We can't get everything done sometimes, and we know that we need sometimes a little bit longer with this exercise. So we give that provision, but we maintain the consistency. Because life happens. We've all got habits that keep us from doing things, but we also know that we're trying to fight those habits at the same time. So I got to do the work and keep myself consistent. So that's the mindset we kind of want, is like, I can still do this. I can still put all of this in my life and invest.
So L'Oreal, just coming back to the chakras. So obviously your root chakra is your lowest, or that represents like your toddler stage. Now,
Yes, for us it represents that.
if I think about my toddler years, many moons ago, there is not much that I can recall from that. There's some point that's stuck in my memory, which probably will be there till whenever I move on. But so if there was trauma and you do not realize that it happened, let's say on your root level, because from what I understand, you build from your root upwards.
Yes.
So if there's a problem, let's say, and I don't know what a typical manifestation might be from that level, how do you address that if you don't know that this happened or you don't identify the trauma? So
Okay.
how do you come around, to say, well, okay, here's a problem. Let's start from scratch.
Yeah. Well, see, most of the people that do this will kind of be aware of the things that have happened with them, and not many would be in the state to bring up something really new or maybe something that has been forgotten. Toddler stages is more like that's those survival needs that I was talking about. So it's not always the trauma that you would remember, but what it is that I need now as my survival, because our old patterning, my old way of survival was this is how my survival needs were, this is what my physical needs were. But now that I'm looking back at certain things of the way that I used to survive and the way that I need to get myself out of that survival mode, because that survival mode keeps you stuck at those lower levels, especially in your emotional, your mental state as well. So when you elevate, so it's not necessary that any trauma happened to you. It's just that there's a way that your survival needs, so that grounding phase needs to be reestablished.
Okay. And it's something that you do as you work through certain aspects to say, well, okay, we kind of identify, well, this is the problem, and you move on from that point on.
Yeah. So look, there's quite a few sections, because each person that comes and does this program won't have the same issue, or won't have the same problems, or won't have the same things. So we have the basis, and then there's obviously additional things that we add to the program that would be curated for you based on whatever survival need that needs to be taken care of, and then re-implementation. Let me walk you through the inner child meditation. And then if anybody wants to come up and ask questions, or any ask anything, then we can.
L'Oreal, would you mind if I turn my camera off for that though?
Of
Can I do
course,
that?
listen, get as long as you're comfortable, that's all that matters. So if everybody can just get comfortable, make sure that you have your water close with you. Some people might, maybe you feel thirsty, make sure you got something just warm over you, comfortable, low lighting if you can. If you can't, that's okay. Okay, now we're going to get into our meditative state. If you just find yourself comfortable, and just do some regular breathing while you settle in. Maybe you want to relax your shoulders, relax your forehead, relax your jawline. And we're just going to sit here and breathe for a moment. You can have your palms facing up. And you can be aware of the noises that are around you. They could be cars, they could be birds, they could be a fridge. Just let those noises play in the background as they normally do. Now we center ourselves back to breath with an inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. I want you to take a walk with me into a pretty garden. We're going to stand here by the beautiful gates into the beautiful maze that we're about to embark on. At the gates, there's a big hedge surrounding this beautiful garden. And these big black gates open up wide and allow us to walk through. And as we walk through deeper into the maze, we see tree sculptures, we see roses and little fountains. And we walk going down each passage deeper and deeper into the maze, taking a left deeper and deeper into the maze. And just before we arrive to the center of this maze, into the center of this maze, there's a beautiful garden with a fountain spraying water, with a wooden deck that leads to a beautiful chair. And as you walk closer and closer to that seat in the middle of the beautiful garden, you see your little self, the little tiny you. What are they wearing? What color is their hair? Would you like to sit next to the little you? Is there something you would like to say? Would he or she like to say something to you? Maybe have a moment with each other. Maybe you want to give them a hug. Maybe you want to hold their hand. Maybe there's something that you want to give them. Or is there something that they want to give you? And as our time comes near to going back home, it's time to say goodbye to the little you. You can say your last words. Do you want to give them a hug? Or now it's time to walk back to me in the deck, coming back to exit the maze as we go down each passage, coming closer and closer to the entrance, turning right, that is leading us out, passing every rose bush, every hedge, every fountain and scalp that we see along the way. As we are walking down the last hedge, opening to the path that leads us to the gate. As we start to leave this beautiful garden, the gates close behind us. And when you're ready, you can wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, put your hand on your heart and chest. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Maybe you want to turn your neck. And if some of you may want to drink your water, if maybe you're feeling a little bit thirsty. Kind of like almost taking a little nap. And then when you're ready, you can sit back up more actively. Like, there we go. Now, if anybody has feedback, but yes, it does. That's why I always recommend water. For some reason, meditation does make you feel quite thirsty and it's re-energizing. So when we drink water, we're also replenishing our body. Obviously, we're replenishing the body. The frequency, because water neutralizes a lot of the frequency in our body, especially if we're elevating very high frequency, it will complement that. EFT and NLP are kind of similar. The way that you approach your scenarios and stuff. So with you going through to get to that specific point, but because we're working with the inner child, we tend to go very gentle because we're doing the reparenting. So we're not going from that stance of like we're at that adult stage. We're working with the inner child, so we have to be gentle. And the scenarios that you take people, and also if people are willing to go down that road. So some people have a really hard time just meeting their inner child or just even meeting themselves. So that's a big thing for people, is to be able to go and do those things in any kind of state that they go, whether they use quantum freedom, QHHT, neurolinguistic programming, EFT, so there's different. I like it with the inner child because we go to the person that really needed us at the moment or that time in our life. Same thing if it was the teenager, we go back to the teenager because you got to meet them at their different, you got to meet yourself at those different levels to see where, so that your inner teenager could probably look at where you are now and actually be proud of you, because maybe when you're a teenager you would have never known that you would have seen today because you tried to yourself so many times when you were younger. So to go back and meet with that inner child, that inner teenager, and be like, look where I am today, and I hope that you're proud of me, because you also got something to say to your inner teenager. Your inner teenager's also got something to say to you. That's why I said, is there anything that you would like to say to your teenager? Is there anything that your inner teenager would like to tell you? Because maybe they have something to reveal to you that no one else knows. Maybe something that you know about that you've put. So that's why I said, I give you that moment to know that you can always go back there, talk to that little child, see what was wrong, or that teenager, and see how, are you proud of me that we didn't end our lives? Are you proud of me that I got this far? You're talking to your younger you, so you're hoping that little you is proud.
Right.
Same with the adult, like your younger adult. Because the same thing would have happened during those days.
I just want to jump back on some of the comments. So Dee made a comment. I fear and almost shame to talk to them I let them down somehow. So I don't want to point fingers here or something, but would that be one of the symptoms to look out for?
That has come up before, where people feel like they've disappointed because they could have done things better, but also remember, with your emotional intelligence, you didn't know how until you had to know how. So I didn't know better. That's why with the I'm sorry. That's why you gotta apologize to yourself as well. I'm sorry that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I didn't know how. I'm sorry that it happened to you. I didn't know how to protect you. I didn't know how to love you. I'm sorry that I didn't get to do that. I didn't know how. Now I do, and that's what makes the difference. I'm able to do it now. I didn't know then, but nothing's stopping me from doing that now.
So I'm going to use that example now again, and sorry, Dee, it's nothing pointed towards you, but if I become aware of,
You're right.
of a fear or of a situation, that would be then my, let's call it the flag to say, okay, I need to spend some time on this particular scenario, or that's where I need healing. That's pretty much what it has to boil down to. Am I correct by saying that?
So you would focus on so you would have to focus on that disappointment. You would have to go through the trail of disappointment. Where do you feel like you've disappointed? What point? What is your point of disappointment? So where does this level of disappointment go up to? Is there a space where you feel like you need to forgive yourself for certain things, or is it like you're blaming yourself for certain things? So each scenario is quite different. Dee was talking about the shame. So again, that's one part of the aspect that we need to focus on, is the shame. Where does the shame come from? Is it because we there's parts of us that we have to swallow our pride because we recognize that we did something wrong? The shame that was either projected onto us, because a lot of things that happen in our lives are also projection from other people. So where does that shame stem from? And it has to come from the scenarios that we end up talking about when we open up about certain things. Then we do shame exercises, or we'll do the certain exercises on that. But each person's scenario is so different, so it's hard to say that this is a one fits all, one size fits all kind of thing, because everybody has something that they might not be willing to work on, but they'll work on this instead. People are very hard on themselves when it comes to growing and wanting.
Thank you, Teaspoon. Thank you, Unzing. Thank you, Teaspoon. I see you guys. Thank you, everybody, for liking and gifting.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it when people go back and go back to the inner child experience to have that moment with them. And some people don't even know that it's possible for them to do that. That's why such a simple meditation like this can show you that, okay, now that you've been there, how many times are you going to go and visit her? Right?
So
Or him?
is there a guideline as to how frequently you need to do this? Because obviously, and I'm just thinking back now to what Teaspoon has brought up on a previous session. Obviously you associate that emotion to a memory. So overexposure to it might also not be a good thing. So is there like a kind of guideline to say, well, okay, I need to be mindful, to say, well, that I don't do it, let's say 5 times a day, for instance, rather, maybe once a month, that you space out the frequency.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of guideline?
Because the program that we do, we go through the guided sessions, and then you get to do it on your own accord, because now you know how to do it. You can choose a time when you want to go and do it. There's not a lot of people who are rushing to go and meet their inner child, because it takes, we're all busy in our day-to-day lives. It's those moments that we find for ourselves. But not having the knowledge of how to get there and back is what is really missing. You're responsible at the end of the day of how many times you want to meet. You've got the guide. When you go through the sessions, you're given the guidelines to be able to get yourself into that, even with your teenager, because we do it through each stage. So you meet your inner child, And you might want to go back there. You might not want to go back there. Maybe you want to go back to your inner teenager more than you did. I had one client who did not want to leave their inner teenager.
Oh, wow.
I said, we have to, eventually I was like, we have to move on though, because it's part of the program. Because again, you don't want to stay there and not meet your inner adult self, because that's the next level. But you can always go back there and spend time with him. And that was his thing. He would go maybe twice a week, once a week, depending on the weather. And he would go to the beach and he would sit by a rock. And that was his moment with him and his inner child, or his inner teenager. And it was like once a week. And then eventually you don't need to go and visit that place anymore because you've done the healing. You got to have those conversations. You got to decide what kind of conversations that you're needing to have with them. We'll give you the guidelines. We'll obviously walk you through the meditation so that you'll always be in that space. So that's why we use a maze, because everybody can build a maze in their head. You go through the hedges. You walk your way in. And it's just like with exercising. You can't just stop the routine. The way that you do it in is the way that you do it out. So that you do like a warming up and cooling down kind of thing.
Well, that was great. Sai, thank you so much for doing that. The guided meditation. I must say I did not expect that tonight. So that was cool.
So just a follow-up question. So obviously, I mean, you can practice this as a teenager as well, or I don't know how young you can start implementing it.
So you can meet yourself at any age that you want to. You can meet yourself as you are today, as you are today, and have that conversation with yourself. You can go at any point in your life. That's why when we go through the program, we do a lot of if there's a specific age of something, or if there's a specific, then we work on those things. Let's go and talk with your 16-year-old self or your 15-year-old self if you want to be really specific. Otherwise, because they could have been 14, 15, 16, 17, then you can either do it individually or as a group together. Just being guided in that space, having someone with you on that journey as well. Sometimes it's hard. We've already go through a lot in life alone. This is why it's nice to be going through this with someone, because it's not just a weekly session. There's conversations in between that we have between the sessions, because you've got questions that you might want to ask, and you can't wait until next week to ask them because you want to get the work done. And it shows that people really want to do it. People want to get involved. People want to break out of those patterns that are keeping them in that captive state of themselves.
Right.
When would you say would it be prudent to start doing these exercises? Do you have to wait until you're an adult, or can you start this? Let's say you had a difficult teenage, and maybe you're at the end of your teenage years already. Would that be a good place to start? Can it be done earlier, or where would you kind of put these tools into I want to attach an age limit to it, because obviously
there's no age limit to this. And I mean, obviously no one remembers their toddler or baby years, but there's obviously, from what you can remember, you can go into any point of time in your life and be able to kind of go. But also you have to remember that unless you go for things like quantum hypnotherapy or quantum freedom, those kinds of things will take you into that hypnotic state where you can then open up the file in your brain that holds that information that you aren't releasing.
It's not right at all.
We're not activating, we're not getting into. So you're able to open it up, and that's what quantum. So that way you're kind of going it in a way subconsciously, because you're tapping into the subconscious part of it. Here we're just tapping into the conscious part of it.
Yeah.
So you get it to another level. So you
Right.
have both conscious and subconscious. And remember earlier on, you guys were talking about the reflexology.
Yeah.
I actually got to experience a past life reflexology from a lady that used to do it, and that's mind blowing. That is absolutely, she told me things I've never told people. And I was like, okay. So that was pretty interesting, from an experience of what we are capable of understanding through body, through things. Because, like, even iridology can tell you things about you that nobody knows, but you only know. And it's quite freaky, but as well, it just shows you what our body is capable of telling us as well. There's also the emotional pain chart, which I use a lot in my practice. The emotional pain chart will tell you about, um, like your wrist, your arthritis, your elbow, if your shoulder's sore, your mid back, lower back, your knee is sore. They will tell you about certain emotional things that are also happening to you in your life. Like if you've got knee problems, that means you're refusing to take a step forward in life. You're always on the, like, holding yourself back. So that's also another thing. So emotions will always teach you something about your body. And we use that to navigate with the inner child as well.
That is interesting. I'm just seeing they're saying something here.
Amber.
Ray asked, were you perhaps burnt at the stake, Si?
So I've been told. So I've been told, but we don't know. And also, I don't really dive things so much into the past because it doesn't so much affect my life here. What has affected my life here on this plane, on this reality, is the certain traumas and the certain things that I even put myself into because of those traumas. When you learn unlearning all of these things, when you unlearn, when two chakras, two witches, there's just so many aspects to healing that you gotta find what is suited for you and to get on that journey. You're gonna find someone that you love working with. Like, for me, I can't just go to any doctor. I need to go to someone who really understands me. I'm not going to go to just any chiropractor. I go to someone specifically because they work on an energetic level as well as a physical level. So for me, I already know what my requirements are to have a life that is attuned to me. As before, I would always take what I can get. I would always, okay, if this is the only option, then I would take it. Instead of now, I'm giving myself what really suits me is that I need the energy work done on me. I love doing Reiki. Reiki is like, Reiki is you also work a lot with your emotional body when you do Reiki. You tap. I remember that for me, for pain, I used it a lot for pain because you're working with the physical plane of the body as well as the emotional plane of the body. What is the point of Reiki? Reiki is like Reiki is like a pampering. It's like your soul is getting pampered. You know, you go to a masseuse or you go to a spa and you go get a massage. That's just like aromatherapy. That's just a massage. You know, that's hot stone. That's for the body. But what are we doing for our emotion? Our emotional body. And that for me is Reiki. Reiki is like an energy pampering. Energy pampering session.
If anybody wants to jump in and ask a question.
Yeah. If anybody wants to come and jump in. We do spiritual energy feed. Yeah, if you want to challenge Loreal on anything or have a question or want to provide feedback or get clarity, you guys can jump in a box. Ray said, can we get back to the Kabbalah, specifically the Tree of Life? I don't know if that's related, but I think it's related. You can clarify,
Okay.
Ray.
Tree of Life. So I work more with Macabre, which is your energy centers. The Tree of Life, I know that it's um we use it a lot in, like, I use it in Reiki as the path to enlightenment. So whenever we do Reiki, I always do the Tree of Life. So that's your point, your life energy centers, your key to your consciousness. So um I guess it's more like your discipline of when you transcend. So the effort, like, this is what I spoke about in the inner child healing, is like the consistency, the investment that you have. All it is that your investment into your growth, your discipline, just like religions have a discipline. So now how we land up with this, like, I'm not religious in the sense, but I'm more spiritual in the sense of, like, religions have separated us. So I've taken a little bit of everything and kind of made it, which is um, omnism. I can't get that word today.
Okay, that's glad you're informed.
My daughter bundles out. So so it becomes like a theory of, exactly, a theory of, or a spiritual way of life. So we've taken the qualities that we've seen from a lot of, words are not reading, of the way that we have made life. Now, because I don't belong to a specific group of Christians or religious or stuff, I found a little bit of everything to make it my own, and that has given me the greatest quality of life from to where I was before. So Tree of Life allows us to expand our tree of knowledge, of our life, and that is bringing in the qualities of everything without having the judgment and the I wouldn't say neglect. Neglect's not the right word. Like, not being able to see other people, so that it's a non-denomination. Oh my God, that's the word I was looking for. Non-denominational. So we're allowed to bring it all together, and it doesn't belong to one religion. That it brings everybody together. I work with Macabre, which works with your energy centers. That is the chariot of God. It's the messenger. So this is where we use our energy and from source, the information that we have, to be able to pass it on. Yes, and have a more holistic approach. You see, the thing is, there's a lot of things that certain religions will do that will prevent you from getting better in life. Like, you can go to a doctor, but you can't do herbal medicine, which doesn't make sense because the first medicine in the world was herbs. So now it is frowned upon for you to be taking herbs, but people drink tea all the time, and that's herbs. So, but now we're taking it with a deeper intention. Now it's frowned upon. So those are the kinds of things that I didn't like, that I felt like it was keeping me away from experiencing these things. The chariot of God is what elevates you into that plane. So because, like, not to say that you're the chosen one, but you know that your purpose, my blueprint here on earth, is to be able to make that impact of this 3D, 5D reality that we've been. 3D is where the struggle, the survival, and then the 5D is where we elevate ourselves from that. So it's to move from one consciousness to a different one that elevates our frequency, that elevates us into a better state of being, because we're not. And I think that this whole heaven hell thing is right where we're living it right now. Hell is not a burning really place. It's a life that you end up living in hell, which is the demons within your own self, the problems that you keep yourself shelled into that space. When you move into that other space of life, that's when you have your transcendence, your transformations. It's such like really big words, but it's really just shifting from this reality that we know to a different one that we could be giving ourselves. And then getting straight from source. People don't have to do all of these crazy things to be able to connect to God, because if He's right within us, we don't have to do these extreme things really, and we can just connect. But as well, I'm connecting with Him from a higher state of being, rather than from I need you, I'm what's this word I want to put? I want to say begging. I'm lost for it
Dependent.
now. Not dependent. No, it's not dependent because like we are very dependent. Where it's like I'll like not that I'll call on you when I need you, but I know that if you've been sending me lessons and I've got these lessons to be learning to be able to elevate myself, rather than wasting my prayers on something that I'm supposed to be working on in general. Oh, please take me out of these situations. But I've been given the situations to be able to pull me through the situation or pull me to where I need to be. But I have these lessons to learn. And the resistance of that is me not doing the work, therefore I am falling backwards into this hellward spiral.
Absolutely right. Thank you for openly sharing your beliefs with us and trusting us with that sign. 100%. Thank you for that sign. So Neo says our source is Allah and everything comes having faith.
Yes, but faith also doesn't just belong to like a religion. Faith is like I've always had that saying, walk by faith, not by sight. But the thing is like he also gave me sight to see where I am going. So therefore you've given me the direction. Faith is your highest tool. That is the one God thing. That was the one tool that he actually gave us. Is if you have this, you have everything. And if you live by faith, you've got everything. That is your sword. And when we don't have faith, that's when things fail. I've also been there. I've also tested my faith. I've tested my own faith. And it's not that we test our faith for God. Test the faith that God. We test our own faith that we have towards God. Not that He's testing our faith. We are always testing our own faith that we have.
That is so true. 100% L'Oreal. I also agree with that because when I speak of, L'Oreal knows the space that she keeps with me on a Friday. So basically, if you know me as a person, we always come back to, when we speak of source or universe, we speak of God is our source and universe. He is everything, and for us, we that's what we believe in, that humans cannot give us what we want. It is from source, and blessings come from him when it comes to our inner self of stuff, but also the experience of what we feel along the way of our chapters in life, like our inner child and our teenage years and our adulthood. Yes, trauma comes from that, and that's where we bring it into the space now. Also, only in this time, which is in our adult self, are we able to look at other ways of saying, hey, is this my purpose? Is this thing? Because there has to be, there's some, it's not open to everybody. It's just a chapter that they will experience in their life when they will realize, hey, I need to go back to the trauma. Where did it come from? Why am I here? Why is everybody, like this and I'm not like this? So the light kind of switches on for you to know this is the healing that you need to go back to, and again, when you were explaining, everyone's inner self journey of what they're going to experience is not one size fits all, and it can be blocked to such a point that was your safety mechanism not to even go there, and your inner self can be even at the time when you were being conceived by by your mother. Your mother's trauma could have been your trauma unknowingly from when she gave birth to you. So the energy strand of that goes back deeper, and when things happen in your alignment to where you are as your childhood and stuff like that, and what you've been programmed as a child could be you don't know what experience your mother went through with her line of, experiences and stuff. So yeah, that's how deep your own like energy strand it follows through from what I feel. And we don't meet people by chance. There's a reason why we cross paths with people. And somewhere along the line, they are here to teach us lessons of things that we are unaware of. So yeah, deeper than their deep, our inner child goes.
Sai, is there anything that you think we missed that you would have liked to have covered or would want to point out to provide further clarity on or anything like that?
I did what Neo did mention as well, like with the the mother wound. That's why we also do wound healing. That's where the aspect wound healing comes from. If you've had like certain things happen through childhood, especially in that toddler stage and stuff. But there's also something that you mentioned that kind of like was also, especially when you were a teenager and having the certain mother wounds. Like when people always said, "Oh, that girl's got daddy issues." Remember that? Oh, that's also another thing. Remember the girl that was always said she's got daddy issues? Actually, it turns out that she didn't have daddy issues. She had mommy issues. No one ever brings that up, actually, because dad wasn't around to give her problems. The only one that was left to deal with her was mother, and mother only knew how to deal with her. Therefore, she will have the mother wound, not the father wound. Because the father wound would just be the abandonment or the neglect or this one. But what it boils down is that the mother is always the one that has to pick up the pieces and falls the hardest because she is the one that's there to be thrown stones at. So we also got to heal the mother wound when we do all of this. That's why we reparent ourselves, because when we become the parent to ourselves, we start to realize a lot and actually appreciate what our parents went through, where certain things came up. Like you did certain, like you could have done things as a teenager that you wouldn't normally do, but you only did it because it was to protect your mother. So therefore you've got another wound on top of that. You've got another stage that you would have to heal from because you did something that you could have not involved yourself in. Then you wouldn't have that kind of karmic debt, but because you involved yourself in with what you knew at the time, you tried to you try to help in a sense, but also put yourself in the crossfires, and that's where those issues come from as well.
Teaspoon is also just saying
That's why
that
I say it's like that onion stages, that onion layers. When you have to uncover that onion layers that you have put upon you over your life experiences, and then you just covered it. So obviously this whole inner healing, going back to, is uncovering.
I just want to ask a question from Ellie and Rudolph, our beautiful hosts for this evening. What was your takeaway from this evening?
So, Loreal, I'm going to be straight up front and just give it to you as it is. Up until today, I've heard about the chakras, but I don't know what it was all about or how it relates to me as a person. Okay, so this has been for me a bit of an eye-opener, because I also got the PDF this morning, so I haven't had a lot of time. That's why I say that one section, at the bottom, about the four little, I want to call them the stick figures.
Yes.
That was so confusing to me, because I'm thinking, what's it got to do with the heads? And I was just trying to figure out, how it relates. But now, as you've explained it, the different stages in your life, is obviously represented by the different chakras. And you have to build from the bottom up. So that to me is my takeaway. I don't know about you, Ellie. But if I have to walk away and somebody asks me, that's what I would explain to them with the knowledge I've gained tonight.
Thank you for the feedback.
Rolf, I am going to pile onto that and say that yes, that is also, I've had a very broad understanding of the chakra, but relating it to this type of healing was very informative. And in that same way, if I had to explain it to someone, I would also start with that and in that way. So for me, that was also very interesting. And also just the identifying factors in the different childhood traumas that you went through there, Sai. That was also very insightful. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another thing, Loreal, obviously we've had a couple of sessions now with Teaspoon with regards to the neuro-linguistic programming. Obviously on the live, and then he's had a couple of sessions where I was privileged to attend as well, as a bystander, if I want to call it that. And I can see, what you've explained, the meditation side of things. On the neuro-linguistic programming, there's a similar thing, which is association and disassociation. So obviously, if there's positive things that you want to emphasize on, obviously you want to do the association on them. And obviously, if there's bad or negative emotional situations, you want to disassociate from that. And I can see how this kind of interact with each other. That let's call it the inner trial, that you sit down and you might be afraid, to speak to them, or that sense of abandonment. So that I can see where the association and the disassociation kind of interlink with each other.
Yes.
It's very interesting, obviously different tools for the same kind of healing process.
Yeah. Yes, there's different methods. It's just there's just different terminologies for it. That's why you could find like there was one interview I did and someone said, because I learned the alternatives, and it's also a neurolinguistic program, you learn the alternatives to your medical terms and stuff. And so when I was doing this one interview and someone brought up like your normal kind of like family counseling in a sense. And to me, that didn't resonate. But as soon as I said, oh, but family constellation, for me, that's family therapy. Because they're not your normal family therapy. So I wasn't picking up, because I'm like, oh, but we do that in family constellations, but we do it in this. So there's you're quite there for sure.
So, if anybody reads through that document tonight and they have questions, can people book sessions with you, or
everything is clickable at the bottom? If you do see at the bottom of the, let me just find it quickly. Yeah.
So while you were looking for that, L'Oreal, I found that, I always looked at, I didn't look at I like the way you did your your layout of understanding what the chakras are about and how you associated it with the levels of as you went through your inner child, your teenage child self and stuff. And what's nice is that when I looked at the chakras, I never looked at it in the way you have explained it tonight. I looked at it more of if you suffer with something on your sacral perspective, or your heart, or your throat chakra, if for example, if you constantly have a cold or a throat infection, and you have this throat issues of your throat chakra, it means that you are not able to actually voice what you want to voice, and that's where it gets blocked, because you are shut in a way. And if you have problem with like your feminine side of endometriosis, anything related to your sacral section, which is birthing for a woman, that means that's where your trauma actually lies, of where your healing needs to come. So that's how I looked at the chakra,
Yes.
alignment.
So because we're doing it with the program, we integrated it. We start from, even if your third chakra is open, we still want to balance from the beginning, because you could have
Correct.
and stimulated. You might also be, see, with the third chakra, it's not also about just about the way the communication works. The third chakra is also about listening. So you might be speaking, but not actually listening. So you might be speaking to respond instead of listening, then responding, because that's also a coping mechanism. It's also a mask that we put on. So that's why if the use, it might be active, it could be overactive, it could be overstimulated as well, because of all the talking and non-listening. Grounding yourself back to the basis of the root chakra will help you to realign your third chakra, because now we're going back to the root system, which allows you to calm that overstimulated chakra down, to work with the lower levels, to equalize.
Okay, so Ray asks a question with regards to, does the chakra theory find its place in Sufism within Islam? Okay, so again, you might be wondering, okay, just to let you know, guys, I'm Muslim, so yeah, the whole chakra understanding is not everybody's, way of aligning oneself in, but I do, when I went for a Reiki session, and you get different levels of Reiki as well. And when I went for a Reiki session and they spoke, that's the first time I learned of the chakras and how it, you have seven, they work with the 7 points of the chakra, but there's actually more than that in each, element of your body. I think it can go up to like 9 to 15 kind of chakras. And from what it's my own knowledge that I can relate to, of what I found and searched and stuff like that. So not everybody will allow it into their space. Like for instance, if we do yoga, a lot of people don't do yoga because of, the religious aspect to it. The meditation aspects, it's like, if you want to if you want to receive, you have to see what you're receiving. So you can't do meditation generally with your eyes closed. You have to have you want to have your eyes opened, to receive it, because your energy should supposed to be able to feel what you're going to be receiving. So don't keep your eyes closed. Even praying, when we pray, I mean, it's better to pray with your eyes open than with your eyes closed. So it depends on each person when it comes to the understanding of how they implement it into their life. So yeah, a thirst for, and that's where I'm at. I'm like thirsty for knowledge, and not that I'm not going to use the word belief, because I don't do, if someone wants to like do what would I don't want to use the word tarot. L'Oreal, what's that word? If someone wants to read the cards, but it's not tarot, I don't do that. That kind of thirst for knowledge of what is predicted and where I came from.
Esotericism.
No. Yes, that. I don't do that. And even numerology, again, I don't. But I love numbers. I feel that,
I
when
do
you have your life
numerology.
path
I think
number,
you know that.
yeah, you do. Yeah, I know that. So I know you do. Not you. I'm just saying. I know.
Yeah.
There's one does, the life path number and how it signifies to you, and your birth number. Not that I went into understanding the depth of it, but it's like, okay, my life path number is a number 8. As above, so below. Not everybody will understand what as above, so below means. And that's the infinity sign with the 8, so not everybody goes into that depth, but I just know that, hey, it exists, it's there. How much emphasis I put onto it, it's my own way of just knowing. That's it.
Yeah.
Is that too much?
But that's just it. Like, that's if something like that is going to add value to you. You'll only research something if it adds value to your life. Like, all the time, people ask me, do you think the world is round or do you think the world is flat? I'm like, it makes no difference in my life. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because it doesn't serve me on my day-to-day purpose. So therefore, like, if life numbers and part numbers don't don't resonate with people, that's not what they're looking for in this life. They don't need that information. They don't want that information. So therefore, it's not going to really serve them unless, because what are you doing with the information that you accumulate on a daily basis? That's why we have a mental capacity. We've met our mental cap because we haven't dissolved, we haven't let go of the information that isn't serving us, and we're just accumulating all of that. I was the same. I was information hungry. I just wanted to, same with all my qualifications. I'm an overachiever. I want to know everything. But again, at the same time, it's like, what am I going to do with all of this information now that I have it? That's why we structure it and put it in a book. They say if you wanna hide things from people, put it in a book.